I am happy to introduce our next speaker. This is an industry expert session, the AI Experience Gap. This is Marisa Murgatroyd, co-founder of the Experience Group. Why every industry keeps making the same mistake. The AI Experience Gap is a design problem, not a technology problem. I couldn't agree with that more. So Marisa, join me.
Thank you. All right, great crowd here. I'm super excited. So y'all can see? Fantastic. So I'm here to talk about what I call the AI experience gap. And so for the last decade, my work has been focused on one thing, which is designing customer journeys that actually work. And not just working for the company, but working for the people going through them and the people who are delivering them. So we use behavioral science frameworks, and some of you, raise your hand if you've come by our booth out there and you've done the CX scorecard, a few of you, right? Yeah. So I've been drawing my work from my mentors, people like Yu-Kai Chow and BJ Fogg and others, to really help organizations redesign the experiences that their customers have across every single touch point in every phase of the customer journey. So what I've learned from really designing and optimizing thousands of customer journeys is that when customers disengage, when they ghost, when they quietly stop using a product, or they stop renewing, or they stop recommending you, the reason is almost never what the organization actually thinks it is. There's usually something structural that's going on beneath the surface that the organization can't see. And increasingly, I'm seeing the same structural problem show up pretty much everywhere that directly kind of is based on how organizations are deploying AI across the customer journey. So whether you're looking at aviation, you're looking at insurance, banking, telecom, tech, you name it, I believe that these are different industries with different technologies, but they all have the same problem. So the organizations here in the room, we all have this opportunity to catch the problem early. And when we do, we're going to have a significant competitive advantage over those who don't. So I want to start with a simple question that I believe is a game-changing question, because every conversation that I see in business about AI right now, whether it's about automation, whether it's about omni-channel strategy, intelligent workflows, pretty much all starts with the same exact question. And that question is, what function can we improve, right? Or there's variations of that, like what process can we speed up? You know, what role can we augment? What cost can we reduce? And if you've been in a boardroom, or you've been in a strategy meeting, or some kind of vendor pitch for the past 2 years, I'm guessing you've heard this question, right? How many of you have heard this question? You've led with this question? You've been asked this question? Yeah, 100%. And every time, the logic is the same. You find the function, you deploy the AI, you measure the savings, and then you scale it up. Now, this is what CX and behavioral designers call function-focused design. So that's where you optimize for efficiency and you're optimizing for usability, where you're really treating the customer journey as a series of potential operational problems to be solved. And there's nothing wrong with that question, right? Because speed matters, efficiency matters, scale matters, operational excellence matters. The problem is that when that's the only question. So one of my mentors in behavioral design is Yu-Kai Chow, who created the Octalysis framework. He's known as the godfather of gamification. And it's one of the most widely used behavioral design frameworks in the world. So he makes a distinction that I think is critical for everyone in this room today. And he draws the line between function-focused design and behavior-focused design, human-focused design. So function-focused design, what it does is it assumes that people are going to take the desired action because you tell them to. So it treats customers like units moving through a system. And your job as the designer is to maximize throughput and minimize friction. And that's almost like a factory model. And if you have kids, I'm guessing you realize that doesn't necessarily work. They don't do what you tell them to do, am I right? And the same thing is with customers, with users, with clients, whoever it is that you serve. So human-focused design, it actually starts from a completely different place. It optimizes for people. I'm talking about their feelings, their motivations, their vulnerabilities, in the very specific context that they're in when they're reaching out to you. And it assumes that people have specific reasons why they do or don't want to change, why they do or don't want to take the action. And it designs around those reasons. So this isn't a philosophical distinction, it's a design choice, and it has measurable consequences. And right now, the vast majority of AI deployments across industries globally are function-focused, right? So the question being asked is, what function can we replace? And the answer, pretty much universally, is to start with customer service, am I right? But here's the thing. When you design AI to replace a function, rather than to serve a person, you're inheriting a fundamental structural flaw. And it's a flaw that shows up across every industry, every single time, and most organizations can't see it until the damage has already been done. So the Forrester's 2025 CX Index confirmed what many of you have been sensing. So customer satisfaction scores hit a new low for the 4th consecutive year. We're all here in this room hoping to optimize our journeys, but all of the stats industry-wide show that 4 years of decline during the exact same period that AI investment in customer experience has accelerated faster than anyone ever thought possible. So can you see that that's not a coincidence? That's a direct correlation, right? So it raises a question that I think it's worth exploring here, which is, what if the reason that AI keeps failing the customer experience is not a technology problem at all? What if it's a design problem? And what if every industry is making the exact same mistake? So if you want to see the structural flaw in action, I'm going to walk you through a few examples, some of which I've heard you referencing in the room. Different industries, different technologies, different customers, the same mistake. So how many of you have heard of the aviation industry challenge with Air Canada, where it deployed an AI chatbot to handle customer inquiries on their website? And this customer named Jake Moffat had lost his grandmother. So he ended up going to the Air Canada website and asking about bereavement flares to book a flight to the funeral. And the chatbot actually told him that he could book at full price and then apply for the bereavement discount within 90 days. So he trusted the information, he booked his ticket, he paid $1,600 for it, and then when he later applied for the discount, Air Canada told him that the chatbot was wrong and bereavement fares don't work that way, and his request was denied. So this is where it gets really interesting. So when Moffat challenged this, Air Canada made an argument that I think says everything about the function-focused kind of mindset, right? When you think about function-focused AI design, they argued that the chatbot was a separate legal entity and that Air Canada could not be held responsible for what it told its customers. So the tribunal disagreed, and they ruled that Air Canada was fully liable. So here's what matters to our conversation. So that chatbot was doing what it was designed to do, and it was designed to deflect support tickets. It wasn't designed for the moment when a grieving person needed accurate, compassionate information to get to his grandmother's funeral, right? So the function that it was optimized for, in the moment the customer found themselves in, were completely misaligned. Now, let me give you more examples. This one from the insurance industry. So United Healthcare actually deployed an algorithm to determine coverage for elderly patients. And when human reviewers examined the case, they pretty much overturned the AI's decision 90% of the time. So the AI was not malfunctioning. It was actually designed, doing exactly what it was designed for, which is processing claims through the lens of cost efficiency. So it was answering the questions, can we justify denying this claim? So the human reviewers were bringing something that the algorithm structurally could not, which was the ability to see the full context of a person's situation, right? To weigh factors that don't actually reduce to data points that easily, and to apply professional judgment about what the right outcome should be for this particular human being who is in front of them. And these were patients whose doctors had already prescribed their care, so the question never was, does this person need that? Of course they need it, the doctor said. So the right question was, how do we fulfill our obligation to this particular person? So same case, same data, completely different question being asked, and the distance between those two questions, that is the AI experience gap. So here's where the gap becomes most dangerous. The highest stakes moments in your customer journey, the ones where the person on the other end needs the most from you, are exactly the moments where function-focused AI falls the furthest short. Because those moments, they require context, they require judgment, they require an orientation to the customer that function-focused systems are usually not designed to have. And this pattern, it doesn't stop at aviation. It doesn't stop at insurance. If you look at retail, Forrester studies show that 66% of retailers now target first-time visitors with AI-driven personalization. But here's the thing, only 38% of consumers actually want it at that particular stage in the journey. So the personalization engine, what it was designed to do was to maximize conversion, sales conversion. But what it wasn't designed for is what a first-time customer actually wants. When you're visiting a new site for the first time, considering a new vendor, you want time and space to explore on your own and to build trust and see if this is the company you want to work with. So in banking, AI customer service consistently fails at the moments that matter most. So when a scam victim needed to secure his NatWest accounts immediately, he spent 3 calls basically fighting through AI loops before reaching a human being. So research shows that 61% of bank customers end up contacting human agents because the chatbot interactions failed them. So the failures cluster, and this is where it gets really interesting, they cluster around the exact situations when customers are most vulnerable. We're talking about the fraud, urgent security concerns, and complex financial decisions that require judgment. So the AI, it was designed to reduce support volume, but it wasn't designed for customers who were dealing with the most stressful financial moments of their entire life. So this is the same pattern for industries, aviation, insurance, retail, and banking, and the same structural flaw every single time. So in every case, the AI was designed around what the company needed from that interaction. Ticket deflection, claims processing, conversion optimization, call volume reduction. But in every single case, the person on the other end, they needed something different. They needed accuracy, empathy, space, and trust. So this is the AI experience gap, and the distance between what the AI was designed to optimize for and what the customer actually needs when they encounter it. So every organization deploying AI has this gap. So whether you're in financial services, you're in retail, you're in telecom, insurance, or any other industry represented in the room, the pattern is the same. But the question is whether you can see it. And if this gap is so widespread, you might be asking, well, why aren't more organizations really catching it? And there are 2 reasons. One of them is structural, and one of them is organizational. So the structural reason is that the feedback systems that most organizations rely on were actually built in a world where humans delivered the experience, right? So when a human agent has some kind of bad interaction, there's a trail. It might be a complaint, it might be an escalation, it might be a survey response, a team lead who overhears it, and these signals can travel through the organization and eventually reach someone who can act on it. But a lot of times when the AI delivers the experience, some of those key signals that we've built around go quiet because customers don't always argue with chatbots, right? They don't fill out a satisfaction survey after a failed automation attempt or interaction. They don't write complaint letters into algorithms. So many of them just leave, and they leave quietly. And the organization's dashboards keep showing green because the metrics are being tracked are resolution time, ticket volume, cost per interaction. And those are all function-focused metrics. So can you see that the system is actually performing exactly as designed, but there's a gap? The customers are gone, and nobody's noticed. So the organizational reason is something that many of you will recognize inside of your own companies. In most organizations, the team responsible for AI deployment and the team responsible for customer experience, they don't share the same KPIs, and they often don't share the same timelines. So the result is that experience design happens after the architecture is set, rather than informing it from the very start. And that disconnect, it's not necessarily anybody's fault. It's a structural and it's an organizational problem. But it's one big reason why this AI experience gap exists. So whether you're leading CX strategy or building conversational AI or working on omni-channel infrastructure or running digital transformation within your company, this misalignment is really impacting your work. So here's where the cost really starts to accumulate. You probably know that research shows that 32% of customers will actually leave after a single bad experience, and competition in most of our markets is just increasing. 92% will abandon the company entirely after 2 or 3 bad interactions, right? And those negative interactions, they can be really small. It can be a confusing onboarding flow. It can be a chatbot that loops through unhelpful responses. It can be an automated process that locks an account without a clear path to resolution, or a personalization engine that feels intrusive rather than helpful. And each one of these can chip away at the trust that your organization worked so hard to build. And because AI delivers these experiences at scales, sometimes that erosion can happen across hundreds or thousands of customer interactions simultaneously, sometimes with nobody in the organization aware that some of these interactions are actually happening. So what does it actually look like to close this gap? And what changes when you shift from function-focused to human-focused AI design? Well, it actually starts with redesigning around the customer journey, not the company's workflows. So every customer journey has 4 distinct phases. Each one has a different psychology, different needs, and different risks. And they're discovery, onboarding, scaffolding, and endgame. So discovery, you all know, is how someone finds and evaluates you. And it's a period where curiosity is mixed with skepticism, right? It's while trust is being formed at this critical moment in time. Now, onboarding is that first moment, that first impression after they make the commitment. So motivation is high, but it's fragile, and doubts can creep in fast. So this phase sets the emotional tone for everything else to follow. And then scaffolding is what's called the long middle, where the novelty wears off and real life starts to intrude. So this is where most customers quietly disappear, and most organizations have almost nothing designed for this particular phase. And endgame is where the relationship is either cemented for the long term or allowed to end with a whimper. In most organizations, they end with a whimper as the customer moves on, as someone else with more innovation comes forward. So the ones that design for this phase see disproportionate returns in retention, referral, and lifetime value. Now, here's the problem. Most AI deployments are concentrated in just 1 or 2 of these phases, usually discovery and early onboarding. And they're designed around functional metrics. How fast can we respond? How many tickets can we close? How much volume can we absorb? And they ignore the emotional reality of each phase entirely. So human-focused AI design means asking a different set of questions at every AI touchpoint across the journey. So would you all like a few questions that you can take back to your team, and just start applying them this week? All right, beautiful. So these work regardless of your industry and regardless of your function. Because as you've seen, the structural mistake is the same everywhere. So question number 1 is always, what does someone need from this specific moment, right? Because a first-time customer who's exploring your product versus a long-time client who's hitting a problem 6 months in, or a frustrated user who's about to cancel, they all need different things from the very same system. So while function-focused AI can treat them identically, human-focused design recognizes the moment and it adapts. So think about this in terms of the 4 journey phases. So a customer in discovery, what they need is space and they need trust. They're evaluating you. So they don't want to be sold anything yet. They want time to build confidence, but at their own pace, right? And that pace is different for different people. So if you remember that retail example, 66% of customers, companies are pushing AI personalization at that phase at first-time visitors, but only 38% of them actually want it. And the mismatch here, it's not a technology failure. It's a failure to understand what the person needs from that particular moment in the journey. And a customer in onboarding, well, what they need is they need to feel confident that they made the right decision. And this is the most vulnerable point in the relationship. So if the AI experience of this phase feels generic or confusing or impersonal, well, then you're going to lose them. Not eventually, but pretty quickly. Now, a customer in the long middle, in scaffolding, they need to feel that their continued investment is paying off. They want to see progress. They need to feel that someone or something recognizes their ongoing commitment. And a customer reaching the end game phase, they need to feel like the relationship was worthwhile, and it's worth it to continue deepening into this relationship. So can you see that an AI that serves a customer in crisis, in the same way that it serves a customer browsing for the first time, pretty much has already failed, regardless of how fast they resolve the ticket? So here's question 2. If this moment goes wrong, will anyone in my organization know about it? And this is about rebuilding the feedback architecture that AI in many cases silences. So every AI touch point needs some built-in signal detection. What are the drop-off patterns, the sentiment shifts, the repeat contacts, the behavioral signals that indicate a customer is losing trust? So you're looking for the low points that can erode an experience, and the transitions where the customer needs to feel acknowledged, but instead felt invisible. Now, the goal is to design your AI touchpoints so experience failures surface to the right humans, and it happens in real time, not in a quarterly report, because if your AI is creating trust factors, you need to know about it right away, within hours and not within months. So here's something important for you, regardless of your function. This is also the data that changes internal conversations. So when you can show stakeholders what the AI is actually doing to customer trust with specific signals and specific moments, the conversation about how experience design and AI deployment work together, it quickly shifts. Now, for question number 3, what happens when this moment actually needs a human, right? The handoff between AI and a human agent is one of the most emotionally loaded moments in the entire customer journey, right? Because a customer who's already failed to get what they need from the AI arrives at that human interaction frustrated, right, and skeptical, and they already have diminished trust. So function-focused design treats this as a routing problem, right? But human-focused design treats it as a trust recovery moment. Now, how that context is transferred and whether the customer has to repeat themselves, whether the human acknowledges what just happens, they understand the frustration, all of those details determine whether you recover a relationship or you lose it permanently. And here's something worth knowing. So research in behavioral psychology actually shows that recovering well from a negative moment can actually build more loyalty than if everything had gone smoothly to begin with. So when a customer hits a problem and they get a thoughtful handoff to a human who acknowledges what just happens and resolves it with care, can actually walk away with more trust and loyalty than a customer who never had the problem to begin with. So what this means is that this handoff moment doesn't have to just be damage control. When you design it well, it can be one of the highest value moments in your entire customer journey. And most organizations have almost put no design effort behind it. Yeah? So the ones who do see a disproportionate impact on retention and satisfaction and lifetime value. And the ones who don't, well, one of the things that we're starting to see is that the legal and regulatory landscape has started to catch up to this problem. So 2026 is the year that AI liability moves from being theoretical to being operational. So we've already seen that Air Canada was held fully liable for what their chatbot told a grieving customer. Yeah? That ruling, it set a precedent that if your AI says it, your company owns it regardless of who built the system. So that was just one chatbot giving one customer wrong information about a bereavement fare. Now, multiply that across every AI-powered interaction in your customer journey. So it's no wonder that insurance companies are now writing broad AI exclusions into their policies, because the safety net that a lot of organizations assume they're going to have may not exist at the moment that you need it. And the legal exposure is just the visible cost that you can point to. The larger cost, and I think the one that all of us here in the room care about a lot more, is that the experience debt that's accumulating invisibly across your AI-powered customer journey right now, because every month that AI touchpoints remain function-focused is really another month where you might be experiencing eroding trust at key moments in the journey, right? Another month of silent churn or compounding damage to customer relationships that it might have taken you years to build. So the organizations that are going to lead this next phase of CX are not the ones with the most advanced AI. They're the ones that recognize early that the question, what function can we replace, was always incomplete, right? The ones who started to ask the question that actually determines whether any of this is going to work, which is what does the person on the other end of this interaction need from this specific moment? And that shift in question is something that we can all make. And the ones who make it are going to close the AI experience gap before it becomes a liability, yeah? And the ones who don't, well, can keep making the same mistake that every industry has been making and wondering why the outcomes aren't really improving. So this is something that we do here at the Experience Group. We work with organizations not just to find and close the AI experience gap, but to find and close other gaps in the customer journey, to redesign journeys around human-focused design principles and grounded in real behavioral science frameworks, tested across dozens of industries around the world based on our human psychology of what makes us actually tick. And everything that I've talked about today, it kind of raises the question of where does this gap live inside of your organization, yeah? Which phase of your customer journey is the one that's most exposed? And where are the function-focused blind spots? Because we all have them. We all focus on our perspective on the team or from the company perspective, but what are the blind spots you can't see from the inside? So we've built this CX scorecard to help you see some of those blind spots, and we have an individual version at our booth. And the way it works is it's a game board with 36 proven customer experience drivers that are all mapped across the 4 phases of the journey: discovery, onboarding, scaffolding, and endgame. So you can basically place the colored tiles on each one. Green means it's dialed in, yellow means you need some optimization, and red means it's really missing. So it takes about 5 minutes. It's our gift to you. And then you can snap a photo of it, upload it to a QR code, and it's going to generate an instant report using behavioral design to analyze your strongest phases, your biggest gaps, and recommended next steps. And we also have a virtual team version that can spark conversation and internal dialogues and actually drive consensus as to what the challenges are. So it's a real diagnostic, and the patterns that show up on the board are mapped directly to the kinds of invisible experience failures that we've been talking about today. So I've got my colleagues, they're over there, Jennifer and Day and Richard and Carolyn, and we're at the booth if you want to swing by and do the diagnostic, get your results, see what shows up, have a conversation, come over, because 5 minutes can change how you look at your entire customer journey. So whether you're leading CX strategy or thinking about conversational AI, building your omni-channel infrastructure, whatever it is that you're working on right now, driving digital transformation, this scorecard is going to help you identify where the gaps are. And for those of you who are already thinking, I know where the gaps are, but I need a way to enroll the team, it can give you some language and a framework and the psychological principles to just bring this forward to your team. So come find us, stop by the booth, take the assessment, and I think I might have a room for a question. Is there time for a question? One. All right. Anyone have a question? All right. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I loved your presentation about Air Canada. It's our Canadian airline. If you could expand on what happened with the lawsuit, because AI technology was directly trained with human interaction. So the lawsuit, I'm really curious about it. Could you expand a little bit more about the AI comment, the human comment, the verdict? Because as we go through justice system changes, the AI is going to be correct because it was maneuvered in with human contact. Thank you.
Well, I don't know all the details around the lawsuit, but the main point is that the courts ruled in favor of the customer in saying that we as companies are liable for what our AI says. So if the AI says something that's wrong, we are liable for it. So we can't just say, oh, well, the AI hallucinated and it gave you the wrong information, I'm sorry. We actually not only have to build the guardrails in place, but have the systems to take care of it. So we are liable for our AI. Make sense? So if you're working with a vendor or partner, any of that matters. All right, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Marisa.
Yes.